The rain was pouring down in sheets the night Daniel stuck the "Room for rent" sign in his front yard. It wasn't much of a house. Just a two-bedroom fixer-upper on the edge of town. The white paint was peeling, the porch light flickered like it couldn't decide if it wanted to live or die, and the driveway had cracks deep enough to sprain an ankle if you weren't careful. But for Daniel, it was home, and more importantly, it was a roof over his 7-year-old daughter Emily's head. Daniel was 33, a single dad with more bills than paychecks. His job at the auto repair shop barely covered groceries, let alone the endless medical bills for Emily's asthma. He'd cut back on everything: cable, new clothes, even dinners out. But it still wasn't enough. Renting the spare room was his last resort. He didn't expect much. Maybe a college kid who couldn't stand the dorms. Maybe someone passing through town. Whoever it was, they'd have to live with the sounds of late-night cartoons, the smell of mac and cheese, and the occasional chaos of a little girl who liked to build blanket forts in the living room. He figured most people wouldn't last. But then came her. She showed up 2 days later in the middle of another storm. Her umbrella flipped inside out, and her suitcase wheels rattled against the cracked driveway as she dragged them toward the porch. Daniel opened the door, towel draped over his shoulder, and froze. The girl standing there didn't look like someone desperate for a cheap room. She was tall, graceful, with long chestnut hair pulled into a messy bun. Her clothes weren't flashy, but there was something about the way she carried herself. A quiet elegance, like she belonged somewhere far nicer than his weather-beaten house. "Hi," she said, shivering slightly. "I'm Sophie. I saw your sign. Is the room still available?" Daniel hesitated. Something didn't add up. But Emily came bounding to the door, her big brown eyes lighting up. "Daddy, she's pretty. Can she stay?" Sophie laughed softly, and in that moment, Daniel felt something shift. He didn't know what it was, but he found himself stepping aside. "Yeah," he said. "Come in." Sophie settled in quickly. The spare room wasn't much, just a twin bed, a dresser with a wobbly drawer, and a tiny window overlooking the backyard. But she never complained. She offered to pay the full month's rent up front in cash. Daniel refused at first, embarrassed, but Sophie insisted, her tone firm yet kind. Emily, of course, adored her instantly. Within days, Sophie became part of their little world. She helped Emily with homework, braided her hair before school, and even taught her how to bake cookies. Something Daniel had never quite mastered. At night, after Emily was asleep, Daniel and Sophie would sit at the kitchen table, drinking coffee. She told him she was a college student, studying literature. She didn't talk much about her family, only that things were complicated. Daniel didn't press. He knew what it was like to have complicated parts of your life you'd rather leave alone. Still, something about her didn't add up. Her phone, sleek and new, buzzed constantly with messages she never answered. Once, he caught a glimpse of the name, Dad, flashing on the screen before she quickly silenced it. But she wasn't like the other college kids he'd met. She never partied, never complained about money, never acted entitled. Instead, she pitched in around the house, even fixing the porch light one evening without being asked. She fit into their lives in a way Daniel couldn't explain. And then came the moment that changed everything. It was a Saturday afternoon when Emily had one of her asthma attacks. Daniel had seen them before, but this one was bad, worse than any before. She was gasping, clutching her chest, her little face turning pale. Daniel's hands shook as he fumbled for the inhaler, but it wasn't working. Panic clawed at his chest. He grabbed his keys, ready to drive to the ER. But Sophie stepped in. "Give her to me," she said firmly, her voice steady in a way Daniel's wasn't. She scooped Emily into her arms and, without hesitation, called someone on her phone. "This is Dr. Hamilton," she said briskly. "It's my sister. Severe asthma. Can you prep the ER now?" Daniel blinked. Dr. Hamilton. Within minutes, they were at the hospital. A team was already waiting. They whisked Emily away, treating her immediately. Daniel stood frozen, watching Sophie move through the hospital like she belonged there. Doctors nodded at her. Nurses called her by name. When Emily was stable and resting, Daniel finally turned to Sophie. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice rough. Sophie hesitated, her eyes softening. "I wasn't lying," she said, quietly. "I am a student. But I'm also Sophie Hamilton. My dad is Charles Hamilton." Daniel frowned. The name sounded familiar, and then it hit him. Charles Hamilton, the real estate tycoon. One of the wealthiest men in the state. Sophie was his daughter. The truth unraveled over the next few days. Sophie had grown up in wealth, but not happiness. Her father was powerful, controlling, and constantly in the public eye. Every move she made was scrutinized, every friend questioned, every decision criticized. So, she'd left. She wanted to live like a normal person, without bodyguards or headlines. She wanted to know who she was outside her father's shadow. And somehow that journey had led her to Daniel's peeling house, his little girl, and their humble kitchen filled with the smell of burnt toast and laughter. Daniel didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to push her away. Their worlds were too different. What could a millionaire's daughter want with a broke single dad who patched his jeans instead of buying new ones? But Sophie didn't leave. She stayed. Not out of pity, not out of obligation, but because, as she told him one night while they washed dishes side by side, "This feels more like home than anywhere I've ever been." The weeks rolled on, and Sophie became inseparable from Emily. She was there at every school play, every soccer game, cheering louder than anyone. She taught Emily to paint, to dream big, to believe in herself. And Daniel noticed something else. The more Sophie was around, the lighter his burdens felt. She never flaunted her wealth, never made him feel small. Instead, she brought a warmth to their home he hadn't realized they were missing. One evening, after Emily was tucked in bed, Daniel found Sophie sitting on the porch, staring at the stars. "You could be anywhere in the world," he said softly. "Paris, London, why here?" She turned to him, her eyes shining in the porch light. "Because here, I'm not the millionaire's daughter. I'm just me. And with you too, I've never felt more myself." The emotional climax came on a cold December night. Daniel's old truck broke down on his way home from work, leaving him stranded miles from the house. He called Sophie, embarrassed, not knowing what else to do. When she arrived, not only did she pick him up, she'd brought Emily along, bundled in her pajamas with a blanket and hot cocoa in a thermos. They laughed all the way home, the three of them squeezed into Sophie's little car. And as Daniel glanced in the rearview mirror, seeing Emily's sleepy head resting on Sophie's shoulder, something inside him cracked open. He realized then that this wasn't temporary. Sophie wasn't just a tenant. She wasn't just passing through. She was family. Daniel never asked for her money. He never wanted her connections. All he wanted was the way she made Emily laugh, the way she filled their kitchen with music, the way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't paying attention. And for Sophie, all she wanted was the life she'd found in that modest little house. A life built on love, not wealth. A life she never knew she was searching for, until she found it with them.